If you feel like you're banging on a locked door, stop. Most men make the same fatal mistake. When they feel undervalued, they start trying twice as hard. They buy gifts, change their behavior, and look for logical ways to fix everything. But in the psychology of attraction, this backfires. Research shows that flooding someone with attention when they are pulling away only confirms their decision to leave. Today, we're breaking down the cold, hard truth, why your efforts are being ignored and how to regain control when it feels like the verdict is already in. It's time to stop being the lawyer for a relationship that has already been condemned. Subscribe if you're ready to see reality instead of illusions. Let's get started. If a girl suddenly starts constantly criticizing you, it's not always about fixing minor problems or bad habits. Sometimes it is the primary psychological indicator that she has already checked out of the relationship emotionally. When a woman is invested, her complaints usually come with a desire for a solution. But when she's checked out, the criticism becomes a tool for emotional distancing. This shift is known in clinical psychology as the four horsemen of relationship collapse, specifically focusing on contempt. A study from the Gottman Institute suggests that once a partner begins criticizing your character rather than your specific actions, they are subconsciously trying to build a case for leaving. She isn't mad that you forgot the dishes. She's attacking your fundamental nature to justify her own fading attraction. Look for the negative sentiment override. This is a physiological state where her brain filters out all your positive traits and only highlights the flaws. Even if you do something right, her brain will find a way to interpret it as a mistake. For example, if you bring her flowers, she won't see a romantic gesture. She will criticize the choice of florist or the timing of the gift. She is no longer looking for reasons to stay, but for evidence that you are the wrong man. Another fresh indicator is quiet quitting in relationships. Research shows that before a breakup, a partner often increases verbal friction to create an exit strategy. By picking fights over nothing, she forces you to become the bad guy or the reactor. This relieves her of the guilt associated with ending things because, in her mind, the relationship became toxic due to the constant arguing. You might notice she stops using we and starts using I or you exclusively. This is linguistic distancing. She is mentally untangling her life from yours. If her tone has shifted from playful teasing to cold, sharp corrections, the intimacy is being replaced by a barrier of resentment. She is testing your boundaries to see if you will still chase her, or if you will finally give her the reason she needs to walk away forever. Stick with me, because recognizing this early is the only way to regain your power before the final door closes. Stop playing a game where the goalposts move every time you kick the ball. When you start changing your fundamental behavior to please her, unfollowing accounts, self-censoring your likes, or doubling your attention, and her reaction is a cold, "So what?" You aren't dealing with a relationship hurdle. You are witnessing the confirmation bias of a finished heart. Research in cognitive psychology shows that once a person has mentally checked out, their brain actively filters out your positive changes and hyper-focuses on any remaining flaws to justify their decision to leave. Think about the sunk cost fallacy. Normally, people stay because they've invested time, but when she's done, she stops seeing your effort as an investment and starts seeing it as a nuisance. You unfollow every girl on your list, but instead of peace, she finds a problem with how you breathe or how you plan your weekend. This is called negative sentiment override. It's a psychological state where even a neutral or positive action is interpreted through a lens of resentment. A 20-year study by the Gottman Institute confirms that when this switch flips, no amount of good behavior can fix the dynamic because the problem isn't your actions. It's her perception of your existence. Notice the lack of positive reciprocity. In a healthy relationship, if you step up, she steps up. If you give 10%, she matches it. But here, your 100% effort is met with a 0% emotional return. She isn't looking for a better version of you. She is looking for an exit strategy. By constantly pointing out the next issue, she shifts the guilt of the breakup onto you, making it seem like you just weren't enough, no matter how much you sacrificed. If your improvements are being treated like invisible background noise, stop changing for her. Your efforts are currently acting as a temporary band-aid on a severed limb. Realize that when a woman values the bond, she celebrates the growth. When she ignores the growth and searches for the next fault, she isn't testing you. She's already replaced you. Use that energy to improve for the one person who will actually appreciate it, yourself. The goalposts aren't just moving, they are being dismantled and hauled to a different stadium. When a woman begins an endless cycle of escalating demands, you aren't participating in a relationship improvement plan. You are witnessing a psychological phenomenon called moving the finish line. Research in behavioral economics shows that humans value things more when they invest effort into them. But in a dying relationship, this logic flips. This is the sunk cost fallacy in action. She watches you fix the first issue, then the second, and instead of feeling gratitude, she feels a subconscious loss of respect because you are showing infinite flexibility with no personal boundaries. You are essentially teaching her that yourself is up for negotiation. A 2019 study on relationship dissolution found that pre-breakup fault-finding is a distinct stage where one partner starts creating unsolvable problems. If she complains about your clothes and you change them, she'll suddenly find your career path uninspiring. If you get a promotion, she'll complain that you're never home. She isn't looking for solutions. She is looking for a deal breaker that doesn't exist yet. She is building a mental legal case against you so that when she finally walks away, she can tell herself and her friends that she tried everything and you just couldn't keep up. This is often tied to decision fatigue. She has already checked out emotionally, but the guilt of leaving a good man is too high. To bypass that guilt, her brain creates a series of impossible hurdles. Each time you jump over one, it actually irritates her because you've delayed her exit. You are fixing the plumbing while she is trying to burn the house down for the insurance money. Real relationship growth is about mutual compromise, not a one-way list of demands that grows every time you check an item off. If the list never ends, the relationship already has. Stop fixing the problems and start looking at the person creating them. The moment you stop trying to win a game with no rules is the moment you regain your power. In this segment, we are exposing the most deceptive behavioral pattern in the game, jealousy without the fear of loss. Most men mistake a woman's possessiveness for deep love, but you need to look at the exit strategy. When a woman is truly afraid of losing a high-value partner, she avoids self-sabotage at all costs. She protects the bond because her nervous system views you as an essential asset. However, there is a specific psychological profile where she will exert intense control, check your phone, and question your whereabouts, only to calmly walk away the moment you stop complying. This is what behavioral experts call narcissistic territoriality. It isn't about her heart being broken. It's about her ego being challenged. She isn't guarding a relationship. She is guarding a resource. Recent studies in evolutionary psychology suggest that some individuals use jealousy as a dominance display to lower a partner's self-esteem and make them easier to manage. If she blows up over a minor interaction with another woman but then ends the relationship with a cold, dry eye, you were never her soulmate. You were her territory. True attraction creates a loss aversion effect where the thought of life without you causes genuine physiological distress. In relationship psychology, this shift is known as the negative sentiment override. When a woman is emotionally invested, her brain operates on a grace-based filter. If you forget an important date, she doesn't see a character flaw, she sees a tired man who had a long day at the office. This is actually a survival mechanism of high-functioning relationships called positive attribution bias. She literally rewrites the narrative of your failures to keep the bond intact because her nervous system still views you as a safe harbor. However, the moment her emotional detachment begins, her brain switches to confirmation bias. She stops being your partner and starts acting like a prosecutor building a federal case. Research in behavioral dynamics shows that when attraction dies, a woman's brain begins to catalog your micro errors, things she used to find charming or irrelevant, and stores them as evidence of incompatibility. If you're late for dinner now, it isn't just traffic. In her mind, it's definitive proof that you don't respect her time. She is no longer looking for a solution, she is looking for a conviction. A fascinating study on emotional appraisal reveals that indifferent partners experience cognitive dissonance when you do something right. If she has already decided to blame you, your sudden kindness will actually irritate her because it ruins the negative story she's telling herself. She will weaponize your past against your present. When she loves you, she acts as your defense attorney, protecting your reputation even from yourself. When she's done, she becomes the judge, using your own vulnerabilities as the closing argument for why she should leave. If you find yourself constantly defending your intentions rather than your actions, the emotional bridge has already collapsed. You aren't fighting about a mistake, you're fighting a predetermined verdict. The internal decision to detach usually happens months before the actual breakup. This is a psychological phenomenon called cognitive dissonance reduction. Once her emotional center decides the relationship is no longer viable, her brain enters a selective processing mode. She stops seeing your efforts and starts cataloging your flaws to make her exit feel like a logical necessity rather than a choice. This is why a man can feel like everything was fine yesterday, while she feels like the house has been on fire for a year. Recent neurological studies show that when a person decides to end a bond, the brain's ventral tegmental area, the reward center, literally stops firing in response to the partner's face. She isn't just acting cold. Her brain has physically rewired itself to stop producing dopamine in your presence. To bridge the gap between her past love and current indifference, she creates a negative narrative. She begins to rewrite the history of the relationship, convincing herself that the good times were actually manipulations or accidents. Watch for the kitchen sinking effect. This is a tactical escalation where she brings up every minor mistake from the last 3 years during a simple argument about the dishes. She is intentionally stacking the deck. By making the case against you so heavy, she absolves herself of guilt. She needs you to be the villain so she can remain the hero of her own story. Research from the Gottman Institute calls this negative sentiment override, where even a neutral comment from you is interpreted as a personal attack. In this phase, she will often engage in social priming. She starts complaining about these newly discovered big problems to her friends and family. This isn't just venting, she is building an external support structure to validate her internal decision. By the time she actually says, "It's over," she has already received a dozen stamps of approval from her inner circle. She isn't leaving because of the small complaint she just shouted about. She's leaving because she finished building the bridge to her new life weeks ago. You are just seeing the final step. If you're trying harder every day while the demands on you keep growing, realize this. It's not about your behavior anymore. When your efforts aren't valued, the issue isn't what you do, but how she feels. Someone who wants to stay looks for ways to stay. But someone who is already checked out psychologically looks for reasons to leave. This shift is rooted in a psychological phenomenon called confirmation bias. Once her emotional attachment drops, her brain stops recording your wins and only catalogs your mistakes to justify her desire to exit. A study from the Journal of Social and Personal Relationships shows that when a partner enters the de-escalation phase, they begin to perceive neutral actions as negative. You could bring her flowers, and her brain will interpret it as a manipulation tactic rather than a gift. You are also likely dealing with moving goalposts. This is a defense mechanism where she sets a requirement for you to meet, but the moment you achieve it, she creates a new, more difficult one. This ensures you can never actually win because her goal isn't for you to succeed. It's to keep you failing until the relationship collapses under its own weight. Furthermore, research into investment model theory suggests that people don't leave when things get hard. They leave when they perceive the quality of alternatives is higher or their sunk cost no longer matters. If she feels your emotional energy is entirely predictable, your value in her internal market plummets. Stop trying to negotiate with her logic. You cannot use reason to change a decision that was made by her emotions. The moment you stop chasing her approval is the exact moment you regain your sovereignty.